Have you ever looked at a giant global company and just wondered, how does that thing even work? I mean, it's definitely not just one person making all the calls. The best way to think about it is like a massive skyscraper. It needs a really detailed architectural blueprint to stand up and function. Well, in the business world, that blueprint is called corporate governance. And today, we're going to explore exactly how it's designed.
So, who actually holds those blueprints? Who's truly in charge here? Is it the famous CEO we always see in the news? Or maybe the thousands, sometimes millions of shareholders who own a tiny piece of the pie? Or is it that powerful, kind of mysterious group we call the board of directors? Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down what corporate governance actually is. Then we're going to meet the architects. That's the board. After that, we'll get into their specialist teams, the committees. Then we'll look at the builders, the management team that makes it all happen. And finally, we'll see how the whole system flows together.
Okay, let's get right into it. What exactly is this corporate rule book we're talking about? You know, at its absolute core, corporate governance is a system that answers three really critical questions for any company. 1, who has the power? 2, how do they get to use it? And 3, and this is the big one, who holds them accountable? It's the ultimate framework for making sure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. But it's so much more than just a list of rules. Good governance, the kind that really works, is about creating a culture. It's about setting clear standards for how people should behave, building a solid framework of policies and controls, and making sure the company hits its goals in a responsible and ethical way. It's all about leadership and transparency.
Okay, so let's move up to the top floor and meet the master planners, the architects of this whole corporate structure, the board of directors. The board sits right at the very top of the food chain. Think of them as the essential link, the bridge between the people who actually own the company, that's the shareholders, and the people who run it every single day, the managers. They are the ultimate guardians of the company's future.
Now, a board isn't just one type of person, and that's what makes it work. It's all about balance. On one hand, you have executive directors, like the CEO. These are the insiders who know the company's day-to-day operations inside and out. But then you have non-executive directors. They're the outsiders, not involved in the daily grind, who bring a fresh, independent perspective. You absolutely need both to have a healthy, functioning board.
So what do these folks actually do all day? Well, they're not managing spreadsheets. They're operating from like 30,000 feet. They're the ones who approve the entire corporate strategy, they hire and fire the senior management, they plan for who's going to take over next, and maybe most importantly, they set that tone at the top for the ethics and culture of the entire organization.
And make no mistake, this isn't just a friendly suggestion. This is serious stuff. Directors have a legal obligation. It's called a fiduciary duty. What that means is they have to act as trustees for the company, always in good faith and always putting the company's interests ahead of their own. When that duty gets broken, well, that's when you see those huge corporate scandals.
Right, but a board can't be an expert in absolutely everything. That would be impossible. So what do? They delegate. They bring in the specialists, and those specialist teams are the board committees.
First up, we've got the audit committee. The best way to think of them is as the company's financial watchdog. Their job is to make sure all the numbers are real and all the books are clean. So their whole mission is to protect the financial integrity of the company. They oversee every financial report, they pick the outside auditors who come in and check the work, they review all the company's defenses against risk. Basically, they're the guardians of financial truth. They're the ones meant to prevent another Enron.
Next, you have the remuneration committee. Now, this group has to answer a very important, and let's be honest, often very controversial question. How much do we pay the top executives?
Yeah, they design the entire pay package for the C-suite. The whole goal is to link pay directly to performance. You do well for the company, you get rewarded. The idea is to make sure compensation is fair, that it encourages long-term value for shareholders, and, of course, that it prevents anyone from getting some crazy, unjustified payout. And finally, the last of the big three specialist teams is the nomination committee. So if the board members are the architects, well, this is the committee that actually finds and hires them.
They're constantly scouting for talented people to join the board. They also have to evaluate how the current directors are doing. Are they pulling their weight? And they make sure the board has a healthy mix of different skills, backgrounds, and experiences. They're basically in charge of building the best possible team of architects.
Okay, so the architects have drawn up the plans,
The specialists have checked them over and refined them. Now it's time to actually build the building. Let's meet the people who execute the blueprint, the management team. And this table just nails the fundamental difference here. It's a separation of powers. The board governs, management executes. The board focuses on the big picture, the strategy, that's the what. Management focuses on the tactics, that's the how. The board gives the thumbs up on policy, management actually makes it happen. That division is absolutely critical for good governance. So you have your senior management team. Sometimes it's called an executive or corporate management committee. They're the ones who take that high-level strategy from the board and translate it into real actionable plans that can be rolled out across the entire company. They're the bridge from idea to action.
And then you have the next layer down, divisional management. These are the folks who take those plans and make them a reality on the ground level. They're in charge of specific business units or departments, and they make sure the actual work gets done, day in and day out.
So now that we've seen all the different parts, let's put it all together. Let's see how this whole top-down flow of authority actually works in practice.
And here it is, the entire architecture in 3 simple steps. It's beautiful, really. Step 1, the board sets the destination. They define what needs to be achieved. Step 2, corporate management draws the map. They figure out how it's going to get done. And step 3, divisional management drives the car. They ensure it gets done. What, how, and done. Simple as that.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most important question. We've seen the architects, the specialists, and the builders. So when a company hits it out of the park and achieves incredible success, or when it crashes and burns in a catastrophic failure, where does the buck stop? Which one of these layers ultimately holds the most responsibility? With this structure in mind, the answer, it isn't always as simple as you might think.